Hi there. I'm here to read to you from Black Beauty. Today we're reading chapter 38, Dolly and a Real Gentleman. Turn my lamp on. The winter came in early, with a great deal of cold and wet. There was snow or sleet or rain almost every day for weeks, changing only for keen driving winds or short frosts. The horses all felt it very much. When it is a dry cold, a couple of good thick rugs will keep us warm. But when it is soaking rain, they soon get wet, though, and they are no good. Some of the drivers had a waterproof cover to throw over, which was a fine thing, but some of the men were so poor that they could not protect either themselves or their horses, and many of them suffered very much that winter. When we horses worked half the day, we went to our dry stables and could rest, while they had to sit on their boxes, sometimes staying out as late as 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning if they had a party to wait for. When the streets were slippery with frost or snow, that was the worst for all of us horses. 1 mile, such traveling with a weight to draw and no firm footing, would take more out of us than 4 on a good road. Every nerve and muscle of our body is on the strain to keep our balance, and added to this, the fear of falling is more exhausting than anything else. If the roads are very bad indeed, our shoes are roughed, but that makes us feel nervous at first. When the weather was very bad, many of the men would go and sit in the tavern close by, and get someone to watch for them, but they often lost a fare in that way and could not, as Jerry said, be there without spending money. He never went to the Rising Sun. There was a coffee shop near, where he now and then went, or he bought out of an old man who came to our rank with tins of hot coffee and pies. It was his opinion that spirits and beer made a man colder afterwards, and that dry clothes, good food and cheerfulness, and a comfortable wife at home were the best things to keep a cabman warm. Polly always supplied him with something to eat when he could not get home, and sometimes he would see little Dolly peeping from the corner of the street to make sure if her father was on the stand. If she saw him, she would run off at full speed and soon come back with something in a tin or a basket, some hot soup or pudding that Polly had ready. It was wonderful how such a little thing could get safely across the street, often thronged with horses and carriages. But she was a brave little maid, and felt it quite an honor to bring father's first course, as he used to call it. She was a general favorite on the stand, and there was not a man who would not have seen her safely across the street if Jerry had not been able to do so. So let's show you this picture. One cold, windy day, Dolly had brought Jerry a basin of something hot and was standing by him while he ate it. He was scarcely begun when a gentleman walking towards us very fast held up his umbrella. Jerry touched his hat in return, gave the basin to Dolly, and was taking off my cloth when the gentleman, hastening up, cried out, "No, no, finish your soup, my friend. I have not much time to spare, but I can wait till you have done, and set your little girl safe on the pavement." So saying, he seated himself in the cab. Jerry thanked him kindly and came back to Dolly. "There, Dolly, that's a gentleman. That's a real gentleman, Dolly. He has got time and thought for the comfort of a poor cabman and a little girl." Jerry finished his soup, set the child across, and then took his order to drive to Clapham Rise. Several times after that the gentleman took our cab. I think he was very fond of dogs and horses, for whenever we took him to his own door, 2 or 3 dogs would come bounding out to meet him. Sometimes he came round and patted me, saying in his quiet, pleasant way, "The horse has got a good master, and he deserves it." It was a very rare thing for anyone to notice the horse that had been working for him. I have known ladies to do it now and then, and this gentleman and 1 or 2 others have given me a pat and a kind word, but 99 out of 100 would as soon think of patting the steam engine that drew the train. This gentleman was not young, and there was a forward stoop at his shoulders as if he was going at something. A stoop is when you're hunched over. His lips were thin and close shut. though they had a very pleasant smile. His eyes were keen, and there was something in his jaw and the motion of his head that made one think he was very determined in anything he set about doing. His voice was pleasant and kind. Any horse would trust that voice, though it was just as decided as anything else about him. One day, he and another gentleman took our cab. They stopped at a shop in R Street, and while his friend went in, he stood at the door. A little ahead of us on the other side of the street, a cart with two very fine horses was standing before some wine vaults. The carter was not with them, and I cannot tell how long they had been standing, but they seemed to think they had waited long enough and began to move off. Before they had gone many paces, the carter came running out and caught them. He seemed furious at their having moved, and with the whip and rein punished them brutally, even beating them about the head. Our gentleman saw it all, and stepping quickly across the street, said in a decided voice, "If you don't stop that directly, I'll have you summoned for leaving your horse and for brutal conduct." The man, who had clearly been drinking, poured forth some abusive language, but he left off knocking the horses about, and taking the reins, got into his cart. Meantime our friend had quietly taken out a notebook from his pocket, and looking at the name and address painted on the card, he wrote something down. "What do you want with that?" growled the carter, as he cracked his whip and was moving on. A nod and a grim smile was the only answer he got. On returning to the cab, our friend was joined by his companion, who said laughingly, "I should have thought right. You had enough business of your own to look after without troubling yourself about another people's horses and servants." Well, but you guys, when somebody is not being nice, or you think they're really doing something bad to another person or an animal, it's a good thing to tell another adult or to tell someone who's in charge. I bet that's what they were doing. What do you think? Our friend stood still for a moment and, throwing his head a little back, said, "Do you know why this world is as bad as it is?" "No," said the other. "Then I'll tell you. It is because people think only about their business, and won't trouble themselves to stand up for the oppressed, nor bring the wrongdoer to light. I never see a wicked thing like this without doing what I can, and many his masters thank me for letting him know how his horses have been used." "I wish there were more gentlemen like you, sir," said Jerry, "for they are wanted badly enough in this city." After this we continued our journey, and as they got out of the cab our friend was saying, "My doctrine is this, that if we see cruelty or wrong, that we may have the power to stop and do nothing, we may make ourselves sharers in the guilt." So what he's saying is that if you just watch it happen and you don't do anything about it or try to help the situation, then maybe you're just accepting that it's okay to do that. So I encourage you, if you ever see somebody being bullied, we've talked about this in school, share it with the teacher, talk to your friends, see how you can help, but don't stand for that. Don't act as though you agree with that behavior or that you're okay with it. Share it with an adult so that they can take care of the problem. All right, friends, I will see you later for chapter 39.